Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Andy Pushalik. I'm a partner in our Toronto office, and I am the national leader of the Canadian Employment and Labor Practice Group at Dentons. And today I'm going to be your moderator. So this is one of my favorite webinars of the year because it gives us an opportunity to really hear from those who are on the front lines of HR, and we get to feature some of the country's leading voices on what is truly happening in Canada's workplaces. And today, like past years, we're very, very fortunate to be joined by a group of very impressive HR leaders who each bring a unique perspective about people leadership and also hail from very different workplaces all over the industry and market segments. So first, I want to introduce Christine Barwell. Christine is the Chief Human Resources Officer for Li-Cycle. Li-Cycle is a leading global recycler of lithium-ion batteries. Christine holds an MBA from McMaster University and has specialties in digital transformation. She also has a number of HR designations, including the Certified Human Resources Leader, Global Remuneration Professional, and Certified Compensation Professional, and also recently completed the Diversity and Equity Certificate Program from Cornell University. In her role as Chief Human Resources Officer, Christine is responsible for Li-Cycle's overall HR strategy, function, and process. Janine Pajot is Vice President Human Resources at Bayer Canada. Janine has over 20 years of experience in marketing and account management. She holds an honors Bachelor of Commerce from the University of Windsor and certifications from the Corporate Directors International in Corporate Board Director Certification and from Competent Boards at ESG Global Competent Board Designation. Janine is certified from the Women Get on Board in Getting Board Ready program. And prior to her current role leading Bayer's HR function, she was an account director at CMED Publicité at Anderson and has also held marketing roles at Fournier Pharma. Jan Park is a human resources director of pulp operations at Domtar. She holds a number of HR designations from Queen's University and has held a number of different leadership roles in the HR function during her 20-year career at Domtar. In her current role, she's based in Dryden, Ontario. Narev Patel is the head of human resources at Atura Power. He holds a master's in human resources management from York University, as well as a Bachelor of Arts from the University of Waterloo. He has almost 15 years experience in Ontario's energy sector, and in 2021 was recognized by Electricity Human Resources Canada as the winner of its Agent of Change Award. So Christine, Janine, Jan, and Narev, welcome, and thank you very much for joining us today and being part of our discussion. So I think we'll get right into the Q&A and start talking about the issue that we'll still be talking about in 2024 and maybe 2025, and who knows, return to office. So I'll open it up just to start, and Narav, maybe we'll start with you. What's happening at your workplace, and what's working, and what are the challenges that, and maybe you're not facing any challenges. Maybe everything is just back to normal 5 days a week and people are eating in food courts and everything's fine.
Well, thanks for that welcome, Andy. In our workplace, we've implemented hybrid work, and we have to mention the caveat that we are a 24/7 operation. So we're a series of combined cycle gas plants, and we produce about 6% of the province's electricity. So there is a have and have nots when it comes to working from home. If you're an operator or a maintenance tech, you have to be in the workplace. And so one of the things that we've had to turn our minds to is we know professional staff that are in offices are able to work from home, and our policy is about 2 days a week from the office and then 3 days at a site. You pick a site and you go to it. And that's for collaboration and connecting and partnership, because we don't think we can do it unless it is face-to-face. But what we do with our staff that are field-based, that have to show up, is we've started to ask questions of, what can we do to support you in terms of some flexibility? And what we say is there's things we can control, things we can't, and things that have to be done through bargaining. And so the things that we can do outside of bargaining in terms of some improvements that are cost neutral, that's where we're leaning into with our employees. And some suggestions are getting to be very creative. So, for all the employers out there that have a mixed workforce of field staff and office-based staff, one of the things that have really worked for us is just asking the field-based staff, we know you have to show up, we know you're shift workers, and we know you have a tough job, but what can we do to make some flexibility apparent in your job, and what do we think is reasonable? And we're getting some great ideas. So I'll leave it at that.
Jen, you're similar to Narab's workplace in that you have a 24/7 operation or close to it. What's been the experience at the mills in Domtar?
So a lot of similarities. I think, it's a 24/7 workforce. So there's some of the roles that you can adapt some hybrid schedules to. And we've been exploring that on a one-off basis, because it's not a one size fits all. And frankly, what we have been successful doing, even within the union agreements, is we have been able to, we've listened to one another, and we have been able to midterm negotiate some adjusted schedules. They are part of the collective agreement, and we have been able to successfully do that. They are a pilot right now, and we've approached it that way, but they have in fact been so far so good. They've been successful.
So maybe switching gears from the 24/7 operations over to Christine and Janine. So Christine, I was out with a client yesterday, and she had a great way of phrasing it, that they're trying to make the workplace a magnet, not a mandate. What's the experience in terms of hybrid in your kind of office environment as opposed to kind of out in the field?
Yeah, I think I'm going to keep that that phrase. Similar, I would say our ask for people to come back to the office was a soft ask, which was come in a couple of days a week. We'll all come in on those same 2 days, and you pick the third day. And, that really is driven by people's circumstance. However, on the days that we do ask they come in, we are testing out different things. So as simple as a social after work, or every Thursday, for example, we bring in a latte cart, and it enables employees to meet together in the lounge and spend time having conversation in the lounge, as opposed to going back to their desk. And so we're trying to, we tested it. It went over extremely well. So that's going to be embedded. And we're looking for more examples of just that. How do we encourage people and help them get over, there's a little bit of fear of the commute. So it's we continue to look at options and trying to be creative in doing so.
Janine, what about in the pharma industry? And I mean, you've got operations across the country, very similar to kind of Domtar, where you'll have some office employees and some not. Where would you say what would you say is the most common comment as to why people don't want to come back?
Well, it really depends on the geography. I would say by and large, if we're talking about our Bear Inc. offices, which is located here in Etobicoke, you're probably dealing with, traffic, the commute, and what have you. In other parts, the reasoning could be different. Now, we took a slightly more direct approach in return to gathering when we resumed back in March of last year. So we did ask that employees come back 2 days a week. However, the ask was to work as a cross-functional team and to decide what 2 days those will be. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, what have you. No one picked Monday and Friday, which was really interesting. But nonetheless, I mean, Wednesdays tend to be the busiest days, and that is right across the organization, because we do have satellite offices in addition to Calgary, which is our crop science headquarters. So by and large, it's working because it's a bit of a forced collaboration. However, when we hear organizations that had made it a little looser, sometimes the employees are in, sometimes they're not. So we really just wanted to underline the spirit of collaboration. And like I said, by and large, it's going well. I'm really intrigued to hear my colleagues here on the phone about how to manage the equity with those who need to be in, in seat or on the line, 5 days a week, for example. So I would say that's a challenge that we're looking at as well too, is we want to ensure there's some sort of equity for all of our employees, but maintaining that balance.
So a couple of questions. One, and you might have covered this and I might have missed it, but when everyone's doing their hybrid days, I know at our in our workplace, we are also on in a hybrid environment. And we've left it up to the various groups about anchor days. This became this idea that, okay, everyone will be in at least on this day, so that people can see other people. And Janine, like you mentioned about collaboration. Have any of your workplaces been that prescriptive? Or, I mean, Janine, you mentioned it was more two. Others, I think, have said it really just depends. What's been the experience so far if you have or haven't done an anchor day program?
So I can start on that one, Andy. Like I mentioned, we have, I'll use the word mandate, 2 days a week. Cross-functional teams chose those days, and it kind of fell to the path that Wednesdays tend to be our anchor day. And that day is the one that we really leverage if we're going to have a town hall, if we're going to have showcase activities, if we're having a company barbecue next week. So it'll be held on the Wednesday because we know that the bulk of the employees are in the office during that day.
And I can maybe jump in here. One of the certainly, from a Domtar perspective, Domtar has really two different workspaces. So there's the manufacturing environment, and then there's the corporate office environment. So from a corporate office perspective, there was an initial approach with the mandated days that simply didn't work. And so it was much more of an intentional approach. Let's have a reason to bring people together. Let's have a reason to come to the office. And that has been much more successful. There is a weekly management committee event that happens 1 day a week. It is not a Monday or a Friday. That helps. But it's a day where typically people are on site by virtue of the need for rapid information exchanges and collection of pulling information together for organizational purposes. In addition to that, what has been done is the different teams, i.e., sales or marketing or engineering and that kind of thing, select a day where they come together as a team. And it's really by virtue of onboarding new people in their departments that are joining their team to be able to start to build those relationships that just aren't the same in a virtual world. So not everybody's in on the same day, but as teams, they identify a day that they will all come together within the office.
Nurev, what about over at Atura and kind of your experience so far?
So we haven't mandated any days, but like some of the other speakers, if there's something really important, everybody shows up. So we're having it's multicultural month in June. So we're celebrating that with a potluck, and there's fanfare around everyone coming and cooking, and we're going to do it outside. When we raise the pride flag, we'd have, a gathering, and everybody kind of organically shows up to participate in the social event and then also get connected. And one of the things we've done is employees really want to get involved in things like this, business and non-business related. And so on Fridays, we just have each of our professional employees, they're not managers or the professional staff, take turns chairing. So in a year, you're probably going to be asked to do it about once or twice. And they prepare the agenda, and they just call upon everybody to speak and give some very high level updates of what's happening in their function, whether it's procurement, human resources, operations. We do a land acknowledgement. Everyone focuses on a safety moment. We do a diversity moment. And those are things that it's small, but it's getting people involved, and it's building community electronically. And I think sometimes we need to do a bit of both. So it's on a Friday, and we just had it at 9 o'clock. and the team's chat kind of blows up. Hey, great news. You got that contract signed. What a wonderful ED&I moment you gave. And we did something on what it means to be two-spirited, because it's National Indigenous Month, and it's also Pride Month as well. So, the employees take ownership of that meeting, and the managers love it because they don't have to really do very much. They just sort of say, well, what are the updates you're going to provide? And it's really the speaker's choice in terms of what they want to update on. And then there's one person that's the chair. So we're thinking of ways to build community both in person and online as well. So that really helps, because we just don't have an anchor day. And in our business, it just doesn't make sense to have one. We've got 4 different sites and a head office, and not everyone can be at one place together. So.
Christine, I'll let you weigh in on this, but also I want to just get a question out from the chat. Someone's asked, in terms of letting people work from the office, or encouraging people to work from the office, are you also saying, well, you can have reduced hours in the office and then complete your workday at home to make the commute less daunting? So kind of a question, I guess, about how you're trying to leverage flex time. So Christine, and maybe then over to Janine.
Yeah, certainly. Thanks, Andy. Before I get right into that, I would say, that the impact of work travel as well, I think, has dictated what days people are in the office. So, I started by saying we've got 2 days a week. It's Tuesdays and Thursdays when we require people to be in the office. But that's easily influenced by people's travel. So I think that we now realize people are individuals, and you've got people of varying family status. You've got people living in various geographies, rather, and their nature of work. So we do have some employees who are 100% remote. We have others who prefer to be in the office Monday to Friday, and we have others who can come in for part of the day, but if they can miss that evening rush hour to get home, we allow for that flexibility, and that's really up to the reporting manager. So, as much as we've mandated 2 days, it's pretty flexible to meet our employees' needs.
Janine, any final comments on this topic?
Yeah, very similar to what Christine was mentioning. I think throughout all of this is the best part of it about HR is human. So, realizing the fact that we need to flex for the individuals. So like I said, we ask our employees to come in 2 days a week. But even pre-COVID, we had what we coined core hours. So 9:30 to 3:30. And, that allows that flexibility, let's say for commute, for example. And we trust our employees. So, if they need to leave earlier in the day to go pick up their child, or to, go to an appointment or what have you, we trust the fact that they're going to reach their objective. And in the end, that's really what it is we're trying to achieve here, is trusting our employees that they're going to do the work and the job, and they're going to do it in a caring and professional way.
Great. I mean, we could have a whole hour probably on this topic, and I expect that even some of the other questions, this topic is going to seep into some of your answers. And when we went through the pandemic, obviously, no one knew what was going to happen to the economy. Then the economy really caught fire, and we entered into a time where it was an incredibly hot job market. And statistics from unemployment rates indicate that certainly in Ontario, unemployment remains at or near historic lows. What's your experience right now as we're entering, though, because you read a lot in the headlines about uncertain economic times and how that's impacting your experience with the labor pool and things like that. Narev, maybe we'll start with you, because your workforce is interesting insofar as you've got some people who are office employees and others where you really require pretty specific trades. What's the experience right now in terms of hiring in the current economic conditions?
So I'll say it's a bit challenging. When you work in the public sector, you have very inflexible wage schedules. And so we treat that as a reality. We know we don't have a ton of influence on that. And where we've really dug down to attract and retain people is our hiring process. So it's very simple, it's very quick, and we've mandated to our line, if you have a posting, when we send you the short list, you have a week, and it becomes a priority down to our CEO. If you are staffing is your number one priority. If you've been given the gift of a vacancy, then you need to move on it fast. And so we've been engaged in doing 5 interviews in a day. And then at the end of the day, we just quickly gather everyone and say, who are we hiring? And we're going to give them a verbal offer before the end of the business day and follow up with a written offer the next day. Now, we're smaller. That largely can't be done by large organizations, but we're starting that. And then the other thing we're doing is focusing on career development. So through a staff survey, we've been growing exponentially, and people say, I've been here for 2 years, or I just started last year, but I really don't know enough about the company or enough about the opportunities. And what a great way to promote from within when you have a challenging labor market, or also when people are sort of saying, we've played musical chairs and everyone's been moving around. I think it's a time where people are going to hunker down a little bit and focus on their career and the organization that they've selected. And in some cases, we've had to pay higher fees than normal to get someone in. And so the company's also looking for great performance. And so I think this is a time where you focus on care and watering and feeding of your internal staff. What are we doing for career awareness? We're profiling employees to say, this is what their career looked like and how they got to where they got. We're having coffee chats over lunch to say, someone's just going to talk about being a market analyst, or someone's going to talk about what it's like to be a tradesperson in our plant, because our office-based staff don't often have the opportunity to go there. So we're doing a lot of a day in the life of in very short, meaningful ways that don't take a lot of time, but build community. And that's one of the themes at Atura right now is, how do we build community, and how do we build inclusion, and how do we build that engagement so people choose to stay? When you're not the best in terms of comp, you got to dial up all the other things: culture, opportunity, the ability to fight climate change because of all the wonderful new technology that we're implementing. And those are the things we're really leaning into.
I feel like Narev just made the sales pitch to get some new hires over to Atura. Now, Christina, your company is in that sustainability space. It's very interesting what Li-Cycle is up to. And it's a relatively new company as well. So maybe if you can kind of tell us your experience in the labor market and how things are working at your company.
Yeah, so we definitely are in growth mode, and it's very fast paced. So very similar, I think, to what Nirav has described. We're finding the more senior candidates are a little more nervous to make a big shift. Particularly if they're with a large established organization. I mean, we can't change the phase of business cycle that we're in. We're in growth. We do have a very good story and lends itself to, the ESG priority. People are looking for sort of purpose-driven opportunities when they make a change and come to Li-Cycle. They want to be impactful in the role, and we have lots of opportunity for that. So it really depends on the positions that we're trying to fill, the level of the positions. But definitely we get the feedback that it's a good news story that's easy for people to relate to.
Great, thanks, Christine. So Jan, a bit different in Northern Ontario for sure. And I don't know if you're leveraging remote work as part of your offers and again, similar to Narev, some of the jobs at Domtar obviously require really specific expertise. What's the experience so far with the labor market, 2 years after COVID?
Yeah, just to build on Nirav's comment in terms of from a recruitment perspective, the pace at which you do it is important. And we've at Domtar we've put a number of things in place where, just an example, you're ready to go in advance of completing that interview process, anticipating this goes all well. This is what we're going to do and prepared to do with ranges, and so that you're executing right away because of the pace, just the whole pace of the recruiting atmosphere and the opportunities that particularly those niche technical skills that are so sought after are needed, and the competition is really high. One of the things that the other piece from a retention perspective, one of the things that we've implemented at Domtar, we all do exit interviews, but we're doing stay interviews. So we have a stay interview process where we're from a retention perspective, reaching out to our employees. What do you like about Domtar? What keeps you here? What can we do further? So there's a whole series of interviews that are going on from a stay perspective. I'll talk about the trades just for a minute. Most of our facilities are in small communities. We are in Northern Ontario, for example, and they are small communities. Not everybody wants to live in a small community. So there's been a very deliberate approach to reach out to the community, educate the community within the region around, and really amp that up. Not that we haven't been doing it, but amping it up, really growing from within and growing our own talent. That has been a huge focus.
Thanks, Jen. Janine, we've talked a lot about what we're doing to make us more and more competitive. I assume is it the same issue, just trying to be as quick as you can?
Absolutely. Time to hire is essential, and just like my colleagues here on the panel, we share some of the challenges that we're all facing today. I think the emphasis on the cultural component at Bear is really very important. One piece that we're also leveraging is the fact that Bear is a life science organization. So we're blessed to have actually 3 distinct divisions. So we're trying to encourage our employees to cross the floor, so to speak. So if there are transferable skills, they're encouraged to apply for roles that say maybe they start out in pharma, but we've had some terrific success stories where they've moved over to crop science. So, we're keeping our talent, and they're growing and developing within the organization, but taking on brand new skills as a result of the 3 divisions that we have.
So we've got a couple questions about references, and this is kind of with the HR onboarding process. And I'll share a story that at first I thought it was unusual, and now I've had it from a couple different companies where they've interviewed someone, and then on the first day of work, the person who shows up is not actually the person they interviewed. And I haven't seen this very often, but it has happened. And so we've talked a lot about speed. How are you dealing with your background checks, references? Are you still doing that? Obviously, a lot of companies will make offers conditional on references and sometimes educational credit, whatever. What's been your experiences, and even from a market standpoint, where do you think things are at? And I'll open it up to the floor.
So I'll start.
I can start.
Okay, go ahead, Janine.
Why don't we go Narev, then Jan, and then Janine?
Okay. So we're in a highly regulated environment, putting power on the grid in safety sensitive roles. The minimum that Atura does is a police check. So that does verify identification and criminal and all of that. And my recruitment team has approached me to say, hey, we can cut some hiring cycle time, which is always something that we look at if we remove references. And I've agreed not to do that. I don't think it's the right thing to do. And I think it's a simple step. And we've outsourced some of that work as well. And we're getting some pretty good traction. Is it the be all and end all? We get a template. It's generally very good. Very rarely do we have anything that is a cause for concern. But it's probably good due diligence and what our legal counsel would be telling us anyways in-house if I did approach them with this question. But the police check is what we do to just verify basic identity and criminality and that sort of thing. And we pay them. They go to their local police station, and it's generally done within 5 days. And we just put that as a condition of employment. And then it's about $60 to $80 depending on where you live in the province. And it's pretty easy.
Spoken like a very seasoned HR professional to blame it on legal that you still have to do the references. Jan, we'll go to you.
Yeah, so I would build on what Nirav has said, and it is the fact that where you want speed and efficiency in terms of your process, you're not going to compensate on effectiveness. So background checks and reference checks remain. We've been able to make them very efficient. Our process has been fairly efficient. Where we can accelerate the process in terms of being preparedness for offers and those kinds of things we've done, but we're not willing to compensate on the background checks and the reference checks.
Great. Maybe shift gears again to another question that's been taken in from the crowd. So Christine and Janine, I'll start with you. Are you seeing people insist on a fully remote offer, or is that a bargaining chip that employees are still trying to use? So Christine, we'll start with you.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel a hybrid at a minimum has become an expectation, just as we expect, health and dental coverage. Yes, we have definitely come across candidates who, obviously we want them in the office on a hybrid basis and only want to work 100% remotely. We actually do have a small percentage of our employee base who work remotely. And I think, again, it's a reflection of, we were not too long ago a startup and now a growth organization. And we've had offers declined. And we've actually said, no, we're not prepared to offer 100% remote. Again, it's the nature of where we are. It's important for people to establish the relationships with peers and colleagues. And, the easiest means of doing that is in person. And some are okay with that and some are not.
Great. Thanks, Christine. Janine, anything you want to add on that in terms of your experience and whether or not it's a bargaining chip or at least something that has to be negotiated?
It has come across, throughout the hiring process and what have you. But, one of the key determinations, couple, what is the role? What is the requirement of the role? And then secondly, what's the impact to the colleagues? So, you want to maintain that equity to the best degree that you can. And, to have an exception based on a bargaining chip in a hiring process could upset that, the equity and the culture of the organization. That's something that needs to be weighed and decided upon. So similarly, it's something we will take into consideration if the role is fitting. We've said no as well too.
I feel like I told you we were going to get away from remote work, and then I brought you all back to remote work. So I'll try and do a bit better with this next question. So we're fresh off Mental Health Month. It remains a really important issue in our communities and certainly in the workplace. And people have spoken a lot about burnout. How are you handling employees who are saying that they're working too much and trying to achieve that work-life balance? What is the approach from HR? And maybe let's start with Narav for this one.
Okay, a few things that we're doing. One thing is an initiative on meeting optimization. So I think most of us are Zoomed out, Teamsed out, and it's a back-to-back rat race. So you're at home, but you are just on a series of meetings. And I think we've had to look at our own culture to say, why do we have such a high meeting culture these days since the pandemic? So we're doing things like meetings are 45 minutes. So you have 15 minutes to go to the bathroom, refill your coffee, check some emails, that kind of thing. And one of the things we did for HR is every other Wednesday is called HR Refuel Day. So we don't book meetings with our colleagues. Those of us that are in a client-facing role will attempt to limit the meetings that they have with clients, but you may have to go to them. A lot of our meetings are with other HR people. And so HR Refuel Day has really boosted the HR functions engagement because we're running around fighting fires, dealing with all kinds of meetings, grievances, that kind of thing. And it's a day to say, I'm going to get caught up on my email. I'm going to focus on my development plan. I'm going to do some reading. I am going to focus on some quiet work, some projects. I'm going to do some career planning with my own team. And so it's not large meetings where you have to prepare, but it's things to refuel yourself to be more effective. Those are one of the a strategy that we're using, and I'll just leave it at that.
Oh, that's great. Christine, what about mental health at Lifecycle and trying to advance a culture where we're accommodating, but at the same time making sure we can still meet our operational needs?
Yeah, it's a struggle. It's a high workload environment because of the growth. So we offer programs such as EAP, but where we've really focused is on leadership and demonstrating the right practices. So some simple things, which is maybe think about not sending emails on the weekend, and if you yourself have chosen to work, delay the sending of it so that people get it Monday morning and not Sunday midday. And other smaller practices, again, what's your expectation reaching out to employees? Really think long and hard if it has to be outside of work hours, or can it wait until the next business day? It's not perfect. I'm not sure we're there yet, but I think creating greater awareness is going to help us along that journey.
Yeah, last year at this time, we were talking a lot about disconnect from work policies and
Right.
people scrambling to get those in. So I don't necessarily know if the policy fixed anything or whether there was a problem to be fixed, but I think it's at least started the discussion. Jan, on that point, what's the discussion then over at Domtar?
So I think one of the things that Christine touched on is something that we've had a lot of discussion about, and it is setting expectations. When you're in that virtual space, you're working from your home, you're basically the only one there. You're talking to a lot of people, but you're getting all these emails. Is this what they expect? Is this okay? I think that frequent communication about setting expectations. Look, if I send an email on the weekend, it's because I'm choosing to do that work. I am not expecting you to respond to it. If I need you to respond to it, I will. If it's really important, I'll call you or send you a text. And just being very specific about those expectations. I think more now than ever, we need to advocate, communicate, and make sure we've got really solid mental health, proactive mental health available, tools for people to reach out. And we don't just communicate them once. We have to communicate and figure out different ways to communicate them, because people aren't in the office. They're not walking by that virtual monitor on the side of a wall or some poster somewhere. I mean, we have to be really intentional and regularly communicate the availability of those mental health resources.
Janine, I know that you have a number of programs in place, and like any large employer, you have EAP and things like that. How do you make sure that the message is out to leadership, but also to those more junior employees about where the company sits on mental health?
Absolutely. So, I mean, we truly embrace Mental Health Month. We embrace the topic all year round. As part of our DEI journey, we've also implemented a BRG called Enable, which is for those with disabilities, whether visible or not, and that encompasses as well mental health. And so we leverage this group. It's an employee resource group, and they help to build that bridge to break the stigma of talking about mental health. As well to encouraging our leaders to be more open. I will be very frank. I've shared with the organization my own struggles with mental health to try and break down that barrier that we shouldn't be talking about it. In fact, we should be talking about it all the time and create that safe space for employees to be able to share their own experiences. The one piece that was it was just one of the a small element or tool to bring to the organization. It's not expensive, but wow, the feedback. We brought to our employees the Calm app, CALM, and it's a meditation app. It has sleep stories. The feedback has just been phenomenal, and just such a small investment for the organization with a terrific return for our employees. So I would encourage anyone who's on the line, check it out. It's worth every penny for our employees.
Great, Janine. Maybe we can just put that in the chat as well, just so people know it. Nurev, I'm going to come back to you before moving on with the discussion. One question that's come up is, adjusting benefits, because as someone has mentioned in the Q&A, sometimes if people need psychological support, at $200 an hour, that can get eaten up pretty quick. And you did a great job talking about the struggles in being in the public sector on comp. What can you add to that type of a challenge?
So one of the things we've done through bargaining is, you often look for cost neutral items or ways to save on benefits, right? That certainly helps in the public sector to reduce our envelope for bargaining and use the capital for other things that are really important as well. But we never used to have psychotherapy as part of our benefits. So you had to go to a registered psychologist, and those wait times are quite long, and psychologists can be expensive. So psychotherapists are strictly focused on talk therapy. Generally, they can't administer medication, but that's what I think a lot of the population needs right now, is someone to talk to, a trusted shoulder to lean on. And so they're from a cost perspective, they're a little bit more cost effective than going to a registered psychologist. And the reality is you don't always need a registered psychologist and all the added services that they may provide. And so the use of psychotherapists has been implemented, and the uptake has been quite high. And it does save a little bit, although people are using more mental health support. It's on a cost per basis, it's a bit less. The other thing that we've looked at is just vulnerability, people talking about their struggles in the workplace in a safe space. And so we have a convo plate program where this ceramic plate goes from different sites. And when it arrives at your site, there is a gathering, whether it's in person or face to face. And we just let down our guard and talk a little bit about some of the mental health struggles either we face or our families face. And there's been tears, there's been connections, there's been our HR people talking a little bit about, well, EAP, did you know that we have a computer-based training or CBT for cognitive behavior therapy that you can lean on an app? And so it comes to light in terms of all the benefits that you have, but it also comes to light with the stories. And I think stories speak volumes, and the Convo Plate program is a huge success. So if anyone wants to learn more about that, I'm sure you can get my details from Dentons. But it's really opened some stories up. And then in addition to that, we've got a very simple intranet site with all kinds of local resources. People just click on them and they can find lots of support and tools and things like that as well. So for us as well, it's not just, during Bell Let's Talk Day or in the month of May where it's Mental Health Awareness Month. It's throughout the year, and we do different things to sort of highlight things. Wellness Wednesdays is something we do as well. So a meditation person comes on or a nutrition person comes on, largely through the EAP or some other connections that we have. And those are, cost-effective things we can do. And the uptake is huge. So we do that every other month or every other week.
Great. Well, thanks all of you for really robust discussion on that topic. We got a question from the crowd. I'll answer it to not put anyone on the spot. Have we noticed an increase in requests for accommodation from employees, doctors requesting work from home as the preferred accommodation? Many don't end up being approved after further investigation. Is anyone else experiencing this, and how do you manage? So I will tell you that yes, lots of companies are dealing with it. Similar to Narab's earlier answer, you can always refer it to legal, and legal will say no, because there's without question some bona fide accommodation requests that require some work from home. But I think the overarching point when you're doing your accommodation process, I guess there's two really key points. Is one, we're looking for reasonable accommodation, not preferred and not perfect. And two, it's a two-way street and we got to cooperate. And so if there are operational needs of having you having an employee in the office for at least 1-2 days a week or at different times, like we can make that work, generally speaking, unless you are, as Narav said, a nuclear operator, or in Jan's case, someone who is having to work operating a heavy loader. Some things we can't do, but by and large, I think employers can be flexible, but you're right to make sure that you are really drilling down to make sure that every accommodation request is bona fide. And it's certainly not just a no, there's a procedural obligation to really look at what the accommodation request is, and then a substantive obligation to make sure that we are properly examining the different ways that we could accommodate that employee in the workplace. But very good question, and something certainly very common. So look, we're getting close to the end here, and there are a couple questions that I really did want to give our panelists time to talk about. So let's start with you've all, we're really fortunate to have such a seasoned group of HR professionals, and everyone on this call I've been working in the field for well over a decade. What would you tell your younger self? We've got a lot of HR professionals on the call, a lot of in-house legal and other executives and different types of roles. What would you tell your younger self now if you were embarking on a career in HR in 2023? And Christine, why don't we start with you?
Thanks, Andy. Unpredictability is inevitable. So when you think you've got the answer to something, there's going to be that it depends. And you need to be agile, adjusting to people's needs. So as much as we have, a group of employees, we've got a group of individual employees. And you don't have one best answer, one best solution.
Great, thanks, Christine. Janine, you obviously have a really varied career, starting in marketing and now getting over to HR. What would you say to that younger self if she wasn't going to start in marketing, she was going to go right into HR?
Just be ready for anything. I can't believe, I've been doing this now for 5 years since I've essentially switched careers. Every day has been different. So, go into it with that flexibility mindset and just roll with it, basically.
Jan, what would be your advice?
Expect your path will change. Don't go into your career, with this line of sight that this is where I'm going and this is what it's going to be. Expect it's going to change, and that's okay. And don't be afraid to try something new. Don't be afraid to stretch yourself.
Narev, over to you.
Never discount the power of context. So, I always hear HR said no, or HR won't permit that. And when you work in an environment of rules, collective agreement provisions, and other things, I think the biggest takeaway is never lose your sense of reason. And when a decision is made and you have to stand alone, and it's a very unpopular one, context is everything. So double down on your communications, have the meaningful conversations, and be very frank about why this is unpopular and why we need to do it. And sometimes you'll probably get the respect just for that, even though they don't like the outcome.
We've got 10 minutes left, a few other questions, but we're gonna look now to the future. And so the answer, just so you know, cannot be change. All of you said you got to be ready for change. Well, the change is not the answer to this question. We're sitting in June. We don't know what's on the horizon for the economy, and AI becomes a headline every day. What if anything, are you using AI for in your workplace? And do you have any predictions as to where things go with that, not just in the short term, but the long term? And Janine, we'll start with you.
Yeah, certainly in the short term, we utilize AI to a degree with respect to our talent acquisition processes and specifically screening. So we have a program or a platform called Eightfold, and that utilizes artificial intelligence to screen through resumes and what have you. Given the fact that this is an ever-evolving, very quickly arena, it'll be an interesting ride. And let's take ChatGPT for example. Just recently, the organization just put out a global policy in terms of, okay, be careful kind of thing. But I think we need to embrace it. And looking forward is how do we leverage this technology so that it is doing what it's supposed to do, which is supposed to make our lives easier and what have you. But how do we do that with the critical thinking and the mindset that's going to ensure that what we do by leveraging this technology is for the good of the organization and for the good of our employees?
Jan, over to you.
Yeah, so I think embracing with caution is what I would say. I think at the pace of which there's things that we need to do, I think that's an opportunity to embrace it. Janine's used the screening example as a perfect one, and you know, not only the pace but the availability. The people availability is just not the same in terms of having the scope of people to do some of these things. So I think that's where it can be helpful, as long as it isn't, the caution is in impacting the integrity of the processes that we have in place and that would impact the business.
Christine?
Yeah, I'll give our example in our learning development program. The team there is using a program that uses avatars, and I didn't actually know. I was watching one as I was onboarding myself earlier this year. So, and I asked the question, why are we going that route? And it really was, well, we operate in all parts of the world, obviously speaking different languages. All we have to do is provide the content and it will translate for us. And there, it's, you know, it's as though you have someone speaking to you in that local language. So I think that has lent itself well to our context, given we're a global organization. This morning, I was having a discussion with our L&D director about the use of virtual reality training and hiring co-op students who are in programming programs to help us build those for, you know, pretty critical technical training, but it's new technology. So I think there's lots of opportunity. I agree, you have to really think about what you're using and why, and obviously, you know, it needs oversight and review. But I do think it's going to facilitate some of the things that we want to deliver.
Narav, we'll give you the final word. I'm hopeful that I haven't been listening to an avatar the whole time, even given what Christine just said.
No avatar from Atura Power. Couple things, double down on your code of conduct, and we're still looking at that to say, what do we want to say in this space in terms of integrity, which is one of our key behaviors, and linking it to that. I mean, we have a robot dog that goes into confined spaces where a trades worker would need to do that. So there's obvious benefits to that. I think our unions are looking at us to say, are you displacing workers? And that's something that we'll get into with our legal team and perhaps Dentons eventually. But I think the skill set is going to be important. People's skills will change as AI comes in, and maybe it's more quality assurance than actually doing the work as some of these things become automated. So those are some things. And for those of you who are looking for talented people, go to York University. They have a great cyber and IT program where they integrate work and learning, and you can build your own cyber talent. We've had a tough time hiring cyber talent that's at the experience level. So we've just decided that we're going to get young people and grow the pipeline ourselves and build a commitment from them from year one to graduation. So.
Great. Well, a big thank you from all of us at Dentons to our panelists, Christine, Janine, Jan, Narav, just excellent. And I think this is, like I said, the third year. We've been really fortunate to feature a number of HR leaders. And, you know, we can say too that we're just really grateful that we get to work with people who have such a good handle on what's happening in the workplace and on the front line. So thank you so much to all of you. To all of you who joined, thanks again for continuing to sign up for our Friday afternoons sessions, even as we get into the summer, which though we now take a break because we do recognize that people are going to be having kids out of school and wanting to enjoy the hot summer months. There's lots going on, whether it be with Pride this month and lots of summer vacations I'm sure that you're eager to get to. So we will not be having our next webinar until Friday, September 29th. The invitation, of course, will be circulated a few weeks in advance. If though you have any ideas for topics, please feel free to email any one of the Dentons lawyers who you regularly work with so that we can add that to the list. We're always eager to make sure we know what is really resonating with people who are having to deal with the challenging issues on the front lines. But beyond that, we again thank you for your continued support of this program, and certainly we value the opportunity to work with you on a daily basis. And we wish you a really great, happy, and safe summer. And with that, let's get to the last little bit of the workday and on to the weekend. So thanks again to everyone for joining, and we'll see you next time.